America's earliest frontier days are renowned for their culture of lawlessness and ruthless characters. Here are some little-known stories about some of those enigmatic figures. OK Corral. The legendary October 6, 1881 altercation at the OK Corral is usually regarded as the most notorious shootout in stories of the American Wild West. The skirmish between lawmen and loose grouping of outlaws is one of the best-known gunfights in history, but some inaccuracies have embellished the story. The group of men was known as the Cowboys and included Billy Claiborne, the two Clanton brothers named Billy and Ike, and brothers Frank and Tom McCurdy. On the side of the law were the three Earp brothers, Tombstone City Marshal Virgil and Special Policeman Morgan and Wyatt, as well as temporary policeman Doc Holliday. The clash really did not last long. Despite the involvement of 8 men, the gunfight only blazed for about 30 seconds. Furthermore, the shootout did not occur within the OK Corral at all. In reality, all the crossfire took place near the current intersection of 3rd Street and Fremont Street in Tombstone, a spot which is situated behind the actual corral. A local newspaper got the location wrong, and subsequent mythologizing in books and films over the years reinforced the misnomer. The level of carnage, however, made up for the brevity of the incident. 3 of the lawmen sustained injuries, and 3 of the cowboys lost their lives. Jesse James. Few outlaws are as celebrated during their own lifetime as bank and train robber and pro-Confederate guerrilla fighter Jesse James. Though he pursued a quiet life in Kearney, Missouri, after his outlaw days ended, his previous acquaintance and enemies never forgot him. While planning a robbery with his live-in protectors, James was executed by the newer gang member who sought the corporate reward bounties. After his demise, James was laid to rest in the front yard of his farm to deter grave looters. Over the years, as his enemies dissipated, he was moved to Kearney Cemetery by his family. However, James was still unable to avoid controversy, even after his passing. In 1946, a man called J. Frank Dalton sought publicity by claiming that at age 101 years, he was the real Jesse James. A court even permitted Dalton to legally assume the bandit's name, and when he passed 3 years later, he was interred in a grave bearing the name Jesse James in Grant Berry, Texas. No one knows why Dalton made his public announcement or if he ever had any connection with Jesse James. Strange rumours of Jesse James' survival and the staging of his final exit had started immediately after James' passing and gathered momentum over the years. So much so that finally in 1995 his remains were exhumed. Mitochondrial DNA matching with a female descendant showed that the real Jesse James is indeed buried in Mount Oliver Cemetery in Kearney. Elmer McCurdy. Elmer McCurdy's checkered career lasted longer after his passing than his short life. In 1911, the jobless former plumber, miner and demolition soldier decided to use his skills for bank and train robberies. His first heist of the Iron Mountain Missouri Pacific in Oklahoma was a spectacular failure when he used too much nitroglycerin and most of the money was destroyed. His final bungled robbery was of a passenger train that had mistaken for a secure Katy train carrying thousands of dollars. The disappointed outlaw retrieved only $46 and was slain by lawmen soon after. McCurdy's unclaimed remains were then embalmed with an arsenic-based preservative, shaved, dressed up and displayed for a nickel per view by an undertaker who was determined to profit somehow from their storage. The so-called bandit who wouldn't give up became a popular attraction at the funeral home until 5 years later when travelling carnival moguls James and Charles Patterson posed as McCurdy's long-lost brothers, claiming him as an exhibit for their sideshow. For the next 60 years, the lifeless McCurdy tricked Texas as a curiosity, including a stint in the travelling Museum of Crime, next to wax replicas of famous outlaws like Jesse James. As he became increasingly mummified, his career included cameo appearances in haunted house shows and films such as Narcotte and She Freak. He finally ended up as a prop in a Long Beach, California amusement park, hanging from a gallows in an interactive funhouse. In 1976, during the filming there for the television show The $6 Million Man, a prop man accidentally broke off the arm of what was thought to be a wax mannequin, revealing human muscle and bone tissue. Aiding identification was the finding of a 1924 penny and sideshow ticket stub in McCurdy's mouth, and subsequent testing by the Los Angeles Coroner's Office confirmed it was he. He was buried at the famous Boot Hill Cemetery in Dodge City, Kansas, after a grisly 66-year posthumous career in entertainment. Camels. One strange project in American history saw the establishment of the US Camel Corps in 1856 at Camp Verde, Texas. Reasoning that the barren southwest was similar to the deserts of Egypt, the army requisitioned 74 camels from the Middle East, as well as recruiting 15 camel drivers. Initially brought to the country to serve as pack animals for transportation to the outer regions, the animals displayed strength, endurance, and an ability for long journeys without water. Despite the experiment being generally deemed a success, the outbreak of the Civil War curtailed further exploration of the frontier when the Confederates captured Camp Verde. A plan to use the camels to deliver mail was stymied by commanders' objections, as they lacked the skills to care for the creatures, and in 1864 most of them were sold. Some ended up in Ringling Brothers Circus, while others escaped into the wild. The last recorded sighting of a wandering camel was made in Texas in 1941, and some other descendants of the Camel Corps members may still reside in zoos. The battle. In a daring move intended to replenish rebel coffers with Cripple Creek gold, Confederate General Henry Hopkins Sibley invaded New Mexico territory from the south in early 1862. His scheme was for his troops to trek right up to the mighty Rio Grande River and occupy Colorado. Sibley was not aware, however, that the 1st Regiment of Volunteers in Colorado heard rumours of the plan and marched 400 miles south in only 13 days to swell Yankee forces at Fort Union near Santa Fe. Far from a cakewalk, Sibley's men were confronted with an armed conflict which many historians have described as the Gettysburg of the West. Within only 2 days of fighting, Union troops, probably joining with local ranchers as guides, outflanked the Confederates and torched their supply train. After the brief battle, it was a long, slow trek back to Texas for the rebels, who never attempted a similar incursion. Billy the Kid. A well-known tintype photograph of notorious outlaw and gunfighter Billy the Kid shows him with a gun belt positioned on his left side. For decades, the portrait led to the assumption that the now legendary character born Henry McCurdy was left-handed. However, most tintype cameras created a negative image that presented as positive once it was developed, resulting in the final picture being the reverse of reality. There was also another clue indicating that the photo showed a mirror image and that Billy the Kid was therefore right-handed. He has been snapped posing with his Winchester Model 1873 lever-action rifle. The weapon seems to carry its loading gate on the left side, but Winchester only produced 1873s which loaded on the right. Gold Rush. In 1799, young Conrad Reed came upon a large yellow rock and Little Meadow Creek on the family farm in Cabarrus County in North Carolina. Neither he nor his father, John Reed, had any idea what it was, and the weighty stone was used as a doorstop for 3 years. It was not until 1802 that a visiting jeweller identified the rock as a 17-pound gold nugget. The jeweller paid the family a pittance for the nugget, 1/100th of what it was worth. However, the rush was then on. John Reed established a small gold mining operation on his property which, following the further discovery of a 28-pound nugget, he developed into placer and underground mining. Congress eventually decided to build the Charlotte Mint to deal with the enormous volume of gold uncovered in North Carolina. The good fortunes of the ultimately rich John Reed predated the nation's second gold rush, when, in 1828, gold was discovered in Georgia. 20 years later, James Marshall literally struck gold at Sutter's Mill in California, enticing some 300,000 people west to make their fortunes,